I love making my own air dry clay, and you can too if you follow my previous video. And today I'm going to have a bit of a play with my air dry clay, and I'm going to be making a couple of little items and experiment with it a little bit differently. I'm going to quickly draw out a big leaf shape and use this as a template for a little dish. You can make so many different things with air dry clay, and it's such a fun medium to use, so I hope you enjoy it too. I have a little bit of my clay that I have coloured here already, but I am going to make some white, and to make this one white you actually have to add white paint. So I am adding white oil colour, as I find this works really well in this air dry clay. You might want to wear gloves because it gets a little messy. I don't mind getting a bit messy. Another option you could do is you could put it in a little bag and then squeeze it together while it's in a bag, because it is a bit messy. Really incorporate it in all nicely until it's nice and smooth, and this is quite good to condition the clay as well and really give it a good knead before we use it. And so I'm going to make some more green, and I'm going to do the same with that, and then quickly afterwards I'm going to wash my hands in hot soapy water to get all of that oil paint back off rather quickly. So it is a bit messy. Such a gorgeous colour, and I'm going to mix this with a couple of my existing colours there so that I've got a few variations. Mix any colour combination you wish, and just remember when this clay dries it does actually dry quite a lot brighter, which I really love, and it makes a good alternative to air dry clay, which I tend to do quite a lot more natural in colour, whereas these nice bright vivid colours give you really quite a different piece. The outer layer of this clay actually dries really quite quick, so make sure you just seal up any that you're not using at the time. Make sure all the clay is nicely kneaded and nicely conditioned, and we're going to roll each piece into a nice sausage. So just roll it the length of your hand if you've got a bit of space there, and we're going to roll each one into a sausage like this. Or should I say a coil if you want a more technical term. So as I say, I'm really having a bit of a play with this today, and so I've rolled my coils nice and thin, and I'm simply going to take a sharp knife and chop them up. I just want them all about the same size, I think, and I'm just going to have a little bit of a play and see what happens. I think I'll leave a small section in the middle for another little bit of a project that I think we'll do in a few minutes. Once you've rolled your shapes, you want to work with it quite quickly, otherwise, as I can see here, it's starting to dry out already, and we don't want to dry it out before we've actually incorporated it together and we start to use it. So I'm just simply going to mix up all the colours here, and then we are going to take our rolling pin and simply roll. Beautiful. We're going to make a lovely pattern with our clay, and it's working lovely so far. How pretty is that? Keep squeezing it all in at the side and joining them together, because we want to try and knit all of those pieces back together, which is a little bit more tricky, I think, with this kind of clay. I think if you're doing it with actual air dry clay, then I think it might knit together a little bit easier, but keep pushing it in at the edges, and we can just keep rolling it and seeing if we can get that all to join all up together to make a really pretty pattern. And then we're going to take the template that we drew, and we can simply cut our shape from this. Just maybe going to turn it over and have a look to see what the pattern's like on the other side, if we maybe prefer the pattern on the other side, and I'm just making sure I'm getting it all to knit together there. So let's take a look on the other side. Oh, it's not as quite a nice as pattern because we've got quite a lot of white all together in one space there, but if we turn it over it just gives us a chance to mould the back of it as well and see if we can get it together as best as we can. The template is just a little bit big, I think, so yes, I'm just going to snip it down and cut it a bit more to size to the piece that I managed to roll out. And then you can take a sharp craft knife and you can cut your shape out of the rolled clay. With this kind of clay, I tend to find a push down motion tends to work a little bit better, especially if your knife isn't that sharp. My other craft knife, I'm going to use that in a moment because I think this one is just a little bit sharper, so I should be able to drag that one through. But just see what works for you because we want all of that clay to stay together. Yes, I'm getting a nice clean line there, and it's worked really quite nice. So cut out all of the shape, and then we can also then go in and cut out the rest of the detail. And then I'm going to use my template as a guide, and I'm just going to cut out my pieces, just being ever so gentle there. For the internal holes that I want to create, I've got a couple of different size straws, so I'm just pinching that together at the end, and I'm simply just going to create some holes like that. And it's honestly the easiest way to make holes, rather than trying to get the knife in there. If you've got something like a straw, then that works so well for this. As I say, you can pinch it and make it a slightly different shape and give it a wiggle about in there till you get it the shape you want it. Add just a little more detail. I'm just taking my knife and just scoring the top here. I'm not cutting through in any way, just scoring the top. To smooth the edges, I've just got a tiny little drop of oil in a dish here, and I'm just going to use my finger and smooth down all of the edges. You can use a knife in there too if it helps, but I find if you just use your finger and try and make it as nice and neat as you can. And don't forget all of the little bits that we took off, roll them into a ball, and we'll make them into something too in a minute. So be ever so gentle here and get a knife, palette knife or something large underneath if you need to, and ever so gently lift up your piece. And we're going to pop it into a bowl, and we're going to give it that kind of bowl shape. If you don't want it to be a bowl shape, then just leave it on a tile, something non-porous, so that it's not going to stick. I'm quite confident that this isn't going to stick in my bowl, but if you do think it is going to, add some cling film or cling wrap to the bowl. Another method you can use is just simply take the rolled out pieces and push them together a bit, and then we're going to roll them flat, and we're going to cut some shapes out of these as well. I've just left it, while I was doing that project, I left it on the side and it's gone a little dry, so it would have been better to put it in a bag and keep it safe from the air for a while. But I rolled it out, took a cookie cutter that I use just for clay purposes, and I've cut a little heart, and then I rolled the leftover bits up again and made this marble effect, and I have another little heart, and I can keep going until I have none of the clay left. You could do all kinds of shapes, you could make another little dish out of it all instead, however you wish. And then we're going to leave these on the tile to dry. These shouldn't take too long to dry because they're fairly thin. Here's our dish. I've left it overnight to dry, and I can see with this one, because it's the homemade clay, it doesn't adhere as well as normal air dry clay, so there's slight little cracks have appeared where we tried to push it together, because this clay really contracts and reduces quite a bit. So what I'm simply going to do, take my Mod Podge, you could use some white craft glue, and simply paste this all over the top to try and knit all that together again. I've left this to dry for 2 days now. I'm going to do the same as we did on the top. I'm going to cover with a coat of Mod Podge. Once it's fully dry, make sure you give it another coat all over to give it some extra strength. And it's turned out beautiful, I think. So I hope you give it a go. It was just a bit of a play and a bit of a let's see what we can do, and I'm really quite pleased with how it's turned out. So I hope it inspires you, and come along and make some of my homemade air dry clay, because it's lovely. I love using it and I love the bright colours. So come and see some more. Please comment and please do subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you. Bye for now.